Hi guys, welcome back. It's UK here with another vid. A couple of weeks ago I started watching a vid by our own Tim where he's talked about, I believe he called it the Shelf of Shame or something like that. Role-playing games and things that we have that just sit on our shelves never getting used. So I thought, hey, why not do something similar? These days pretty much my gaming habits are Call of Cthulhu now and again, primarily Pathfinder. And that's kind of about it. But there are 4 games that sit on my shelf that I would love the opportunity to actually run, but for whatever reasons I can't. So I thought I'd go through these. 1 moment, here we go. The first one, All Flesh Must Be Eaten. Gets dragged out probably once or probably about once every couple of years, normally around about Halloween. It's a nice little zombie horror game. It's very tongue-in-cheek though, so it doesn't really make for a full hell-on campaign. It's the sort of thing where the guys like it, but it's just a little too silly at times for them to take it seriously. And so it just sort of sits on my shelf. I had grand ideas at one point of running a campaign sort of set in the George Romero's Night of the Living Dead sort of series films using this campaign that never really sort of came to fruition. People were just not having the time or the inclination. So this poor little rulebook sort of sits on my shelf along with a couple other books that I bought in the series to go along with it. Sad, but in fact, I don't even know whether this is still produced or not. I don't know whether it's Eden Studios, and the last I heard from them was a good few years ago, which I think was they lost the license to the Buffy RPG. I've never seen or heard anything from them since. So, secondly, actually blow the dust off this one. Deathwatch. Dun dun dun. As I'm sure most of you know, I'm a big fan of the Warhammer 40k stuff, and at one point I was involved in a role-playing game for Dark Heresy, which is the first one of these they did, where you play Inquisitorial Acolytes, and that's not a bad little one. It's kind of Cthulhu in space. Since then they did Rogue Trader, which was fairly terrible. This one, Black Crusade, which I'm playing in at the moment, we play Chaos Space Marines, but I'll be honest, it doesn't quite work. But it's fun to play. And they did one called, I think, Only War, where you play a guardsman. But Deathwatch, you got to play the Space Marines. Of the, seconded to the Deathwatch, dealing with all manner of threats on the eastern fringes of the galaxy. I think I've run this twice. I'm always getting people go, oh yeah, I'll play that. And then they kind of turn their noses up and they don't want to know. This is one of those few games where I actually have everything that was released before this went the way of the dinosaur, and I would just love to run a full-on whack campaign. But getting, most of the people I know are not Warhammer 40k aficionados or fans. They don't really get it, and so it doesn't really interest them. So I have an entire collection here, every single book that just sits on the shelf in shame until I can actually find a group that wants to play it. Let me get to the 2 ones I would really like. Dun dun dun. Doctor Who, Adventures in Time and Space. I'm a big Who fan. Big. So when they released this, I was like all over it. I've got everything they've released so far. And since I don't know, it's been about 5 years, I think, since they released the first edition of the book. This is the second edition. The first edition of the book. And I've run it 4 times total in that. First time, there's a great little scenario, if you're interested, online called Curse of the Conqueror. I remember it years ago, early 90s, appearing in a UK role-playing magazine. Great story, fantastic idea. It works really, really well. And I ran that with the pre-gen version of the Doctor and companions for some friends, and I really enjoyed it as a one-off. Couple of years later, I ran it for two friends. One played a Time Lord called Phileas Fogg, whose time machine can see around the world in far less than 80 days. And his companion, who I think was like a contemporary sort of like geek gamer kid. I think it was all a bit strange. And I ran a scenario in the first edition box set called, I think it's called Arrow Down, the scenario. Really, really good, really well. Went fantastically. I couldn't imagine a better game session. Came like a following few weeks to run the second one, and I tried to do. I'll just kind of go off topic slightly. It's not a normal role-playing game. It's what I would consider like an indie game, because it's not like your usual sort of here's your mission, off you go sort of thing. It's very much the sort of role-playing game where players have to play the story and try and make it like the TV show. So it actually rewards you for being captured. It rewards you for well, the game system doesn't really do combat. Combat is the last thing you can possibly do on the initiative list. It tries to promote you talking your way out of things or blagging your way out of it, and making stuff up on the fly, that sort of thing. So it kind of gives you scenarios that, or emphasises the idea of scenarios being, this is the plot, this is where you bring them in, these are the locations, the NPCs, monsters, and what's going on, and then it sort of like lets the players tell the story. Well, the second scenario that I did, it was one that I had, I'll be honest, it was very sad. I had written a kind of Hooniverse fanfic some years earlier, and I thought, oh, it holds itself up well enough. I can use that as the basis and see where the players go. And it highlighted a single flaw in this game. Basically, I tried to emulate like a second Doctor, a Patrick Troughton story, where it was very much they arrive, there's a science base, and it's kind of like the base is being sieged, and the characters have to sort of like work it out and find out what's going on and try and save everybody. But rather than do that, the two players in question, who were experienced role players, couldn't decide or work out what they wanted to do. So they basically dragged everybody into the TARDIS and took them home. So that was like an hour and a half, 2 hours of game that they just, in my mind, just sort of fluffed. And I ran one-off scenario a couple of years later with some friends, and that worked right, but it was only intended as a one-off. But that's the problem with the game, I think. If you've got players who are going to try and do the usual sort of D&D, Cyberpunk, Shadowrun, whatever style, this is your mission, and they want to do it in stages, it's not for them. And as such, I find it very difficult to find players who will play the game properly. They have the wrong mindset, which is a real shame. Lastly, it uses the same system, it's by the same people, Primeval, also based off a TV series. If you haven't seen this, go look for it. Avoid the Canadian like spin-off series, New World, but this, fantastic, ran for 5 seasons, really short seasons, as the UK TV series are. But so in this, you basically work as members of the Ark, because it kind of follows on from season 2. That's not spoiling anything for anyone, I hope. Where you investigate strange anomalies for which dinosaurs and future predators are appearing in the modern day. Uses the same system as I said, really, really good. Only did 2 extra source books for this, a guide to seasons 4 and 5, and then companions with extra dinosaurs and things. I've run the introductory scenario from here once, and then no one's ever been interested, which is a shame, because it's one of those shows that I think worked really, really well. Good bit of British tea time action telly, which is actually ironically the name of the system they use for this in Doctor Who. So this just sits on a shelf until I can find someone who'd be willing to play it. Again, I had grand plans for. I mean, I sit there quite often with the Doctor Who one, and I will. And I've worked out a huge like campaign idea and blocked it into seasons like they do in the show. Just can't get anyone to play them. That's kind of my problem. things that I'm interested in that no one else is. But that's my wall of shame. Everything else is Pathfinder and Call of Cthulhu, so you know it doesn't deserve shame whatsoever. But I don't know if anyone else did a similar vid or has done a similar vid, but I'd be interested to see what's on your wall of shame. Anyway, I'm dragging on a bit, so thank you for watching. Take care and good gaming.